Saturday night in Indianapolis, WNBA All-Star Aliyah Boston is in a Gainbridge locker room with a lower leg injury, and the broadcast teams already said she won't be coming back. Indiana is losing in overtime to a team of rookies and second-year players. And the woman who was supposed to walk in and back Boston up doesn't exist on this roster, because Herb Simon's front office spent the entire offseason refusing to sign one. This is the story of how a 91-year-old Naismith basketball Hall of Famer in Indianapolis abandoned the largest contract in WNBA history before the Indiana Fever played their fourth game. And what's about to happen on Wednesday night when the next opponent walks into Gainbridge and Indiana doesn't have anyone left to put behind her. Caitlin Clark dropped 32 points against the Washington Mystics on Saturday. 7 threes, 8 assists. The kind of fourth-quarter takeover that used to be enough. It wasn't. The Indiana Fever got outscored by 30 in the paint. Washington, a roster built around rookies and second-year players, shot 56% from the field against Indiana's frontcourt. When Boston walked off, no one on the bench could change the math. That's not Clark's problem to fix. She hit the clutch three. She forced overtime. Sonia Citron sank a half-court heave a millisecond too late. The Fever still lost. And the woman who was supposed to make sure the post wasn't a target, she's in the locker room. Aliyah Boston has the largest contract in WNBA history. 4 years, $6.3 million. Signed in April, largest. Not by a little, by structure. The Fever wrote the deal so that Boston's first-year salary lands $190,000 below the max, on purpose, so the front office had room to build around her. And then they didn't build around her. The Fever spent the offseason adding 3 guards. They re-upped Lexi Hull. They drafted 2 more guards in Raven Johnson and Justine Pissett. Add Mo Billings on a vet deal at the 4, Misha Hines-Allen for cheap depth at the same spot. And what happened next was the math turning hostile. The roster is small. The front court is 2 players deep. The defensive center who could have eaten minutes when Boston needed rest or backed her up when her body asked for a night off. That's the player who got signed to the Minnesota Lynx in October. Indiana's front office had 9 months to fix that. They didn't. On Thursday night in Arlington, Texas, Natasha Howard scored 26 points for the Minnesota Lynx, 19 of them in the second half, 11 of 14 from the field. She hit the tie-breaking basket with 51 seconds left to beat the Dallas Wings on the road. The kind of complete game from a front-court player that the Fever haven't had on the floor since Boston came down. Howard wore Fever navy and gold last season. The franchise didn't keep her. They let her sign in Minnesota in October, and they didn't replace her. And Howard is just the loudest receipt. In the same building a week earlier, on opening night, the player who burned Indiana for 20 points was Odyssey Sims. Sims spent 2 seasons in a Fever uniform. The franchise let her walk. She scored 20 against her former team in the first game of the year. 2 former Fever guards. 2 roster decisions that looked like cost discipline in October. By May, they look like something else. They look like a front office that decided what wasn't worth saving and is now watching the bill come due in real time. The Indiana Fever's president of basketball and business operations is Kelly Krauskopf, a job she returned to in September of 2024 after 6 years inside the Pacers' front office. Below her, Amber Cox runs the day-to-day as chief operating officer and general manager. Krauskopf built the roster that won the 2012 WNBA championship the first time she had this job. She knows what depth looks like. The offseason she and Cox approved gave Indiana 5 guards and 2 frontcourt players, and signed neither a starting center backup nor a defensive rim protector to a contract worth losing sleep over. They got cover from above. On April 29th at Fever Media Day, Cox stood at the podium and used a phrase the rest of the league has been quoting ever since. She talked about, quote, decisions impacting what we need to do against a hard cap in the future. The decisions that landed: Hines-Allen for cheap, Pissett on a rookie contract, no starting caliber backup at the 5, not even an experienced second string. And then the cap math turns out to be the answer to a question nobody asked, because the people who run this franchise weren't being asked to balance the cap. They were being asked to protect a $6.3 million contract. They didn't. Aliyah Boston isn't the only player Indiana failed to protect. Look at Sophie Cunningham. Cunningham re-upped in April after spending the back half of last season recovering from a torn MCL. And on Saturday, she played 20 minutes against the Mystics in just her 3rd game back. That's 20 minutes on a knee the franchise hasn't given a real preseason to heal. Now look at Kelsey Mitchell. Mitchell signed a $1.4 million Supermax in April, the first ever under the new CBA. 20% of the cap on a backcourt partner who, on Saturday night, was the only player on the floor besides Clark who could be trusted to make a shot in the fourth quarter. The franchise's investment in Mitchell sits at 1/5 of the cap. Their investment behind her? Minimum deal vets and unproven rookies. The pattern isn't an accident. It's a posture. Pay the stars, refuse to protect them. Wednesday night, the Portland Fire come to Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The Fire are an expansion team. Brand new franchise. Drafted Iana Martin-Carrion 7th overall and built a roster of rookies and reclamation projects. If Aliyah Boston is on the floor in her usual minutes, Indiana wins this game by 12, maybe 15. She's not going to be on the floor in her usual minutes. Stephanie White doesn't know how many minutes Boston can give yet. Nobody does. The injury hasn't been classified publicly. The only thing the broadcast team confirmed on Saturday was, quote, lower leg injury, will not return. What that means on Wednesday, Indiana doesn't know. What the Indiana Fever are about to walk onto the floor with is a star guard who's already taken every battering this league can throw at her, a backcourt partner playing 1/5 of the cap, a frontcourt player nursing an MCL, and a hole where their rim protection is supposed to be. The expansion team gets the home court at full disadvantage. Herb Simon hasn't said a word about Aliyah Boston's injury. Not on the depth behind her, not on the question every Fever fan is asking on social media. When does the franchise that controls the Indiana Pacers, the Indiana Fever, and a piece of the league office start acting like a franchise that wants Caitlin Clark to win something? Because right now, it isn't acting like one. To be fair to Herb Simon, he broke ground on a $78 million Fever training facility last September. The largest in the WNBA renderings dropped in April. It opens before the 2027 season. It is going to be a beautiful building. It is also a building that nobody can play in until next year. Herb Simon is 91 years old. He was inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in October of 2024 as a contributor. 40 years of service to this league. Founding member of the WNBA. The longest-tenured owner in NBA history. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, in announcing the honor, said Simon has been, quote, instrumental in every significant NBA and WNBA development over the past 4 decades. What Simon hasn't done in those 4 decades, apparently, is figure out how to put a center on the bench behind the woman his organization just signed to the largest contract in WNBA history. A 2027 building doesn't fix a 2026 frontcourt. Boston is on the bench. Simon is silent. The Indiana Fever play Portland in 2 days. So here's the question Fever fans deserve an answer to. If Herb Simon won't protect a $6.3 million contract, what do you think happens when Caitlin Clark walks into a Supermax negotiation in 2027 and asks the same franchise to protect $5 million? Indiana is going to ask Clark to commit to this organization through the back half of her prime. They're going to ask her to sign a deal that locks the franchise in. And what Aliyah Boston is finding out right now in a locker room on a Saturday night with the broadcast team confirming she's not coming back is what that protection actually looks like when you take the deal. Let me know in the comments what Indiana should do before Wednesday's tip.